My name is Kalen. This is the first episode of the Progrums Virginia Tech Hokies show. Had started a more general college football show under Programs, but came to realize I really just want to talk about Virginia Tech, so here we are. Thank you to everyone who has followed the Programs VT X account over the last week plus. It's really been taken off, and the recruiting buzz has just gone through the roof. It's been really fun to follow over the last week or so. I guess 9 days since James Franklin was hired. So let's get into it. So today we're going to talk about the Miami game recap just real quick. Obviously everybody knows the Hokies lost that game. But there were some bright spots. For me, as someone who was at Virginia Tech from 03 to 08, Miami is the big rival, the one you want to beat or ruin their season at the very least. And I think the Hokies were potentially able to do that by keeping it close. There was almost an upset there at the end, and probably not going to be making the playoff. Surely Miami wanted to come out and make a statement in that game and wasn't able to do that. Marcellus Hawkins and Jeffrey Overton were the shining stars in this game for the Hokies. They ran the ball like men possessed. Shout out to Coach Brooks, Elijah Brooks, on just finding some really good studs in the stable for this season. And obviously Terrian Stewart as well, but he will be leaving the program after this season. But Hawkins and Overton ran the ball really well against Miami, against a really good Miami run D, and I think it was the most rush yards that anybody's put up against Miami this season. So really good job there. The run blocking was pretty good. Pass blocking left a lot to be desired. Aiden Green was a bright spot at receiver. A couple of really big catches, including one on the sideline. I think it was about a 40-yarder where he got his feet right in bounds, and a lot of people wouldn't have made that catch. So, and then another big one. The first play, Pop Watson came in for Kyron. After Kyron had an injury, Pop throws it immediately down the middle for, I think it was about another 40-yard reception down to about the 5-yard line. And then Pop was a bright spot as well. Ran that next ball in for a touchdown, got the penalty on the spike. But Pop played well. The refs were trash in this game, as they have been over the course of the season. Nothing new there, but just numerous delays and bad calls over the course of the game that really negatively affected just kind of the overall experience of the game, including one on a big third down conversion to Aiden Green that ended up getting called back on an inadvertent whistle, which is just like the absolute worst case scenario from an officiating perspective. So hopefully the ACC will be making some adjustments to the officiating over the offseason. The defense just couldn't buy a stop all day. Well, X that. They actually did get one stop, I think, in the fourth quarter and forced a punt. But for the most part, Carson Beck was able to sit back there and just do as he wished. So they were just pretty much torched through the air by Beck, throwing to Malachi Toney. Obviously a really good player. Another bright spot, the Virginia Tech onside kick there towards the end was just a perfect onside kick. I mean, you couldn't ask for any better than that. Got the perfect hop just short of the receiving player, and were able to recover that. And the Canes really at that point felt like maybe on upset alert. It was a little late in the game to like really mount a comeback, but there was that like potential for an upset comeback. So that was exciting. And then, as I mentioned at the beginning, the Hokies almost well, I won't say almost certainly, most likely kept the Canes out of the playoff with that result. At the same time, Notre Dame hung 70 on Syracuse, so that feels good to at least, if we're not going to go to a bowl game or a playoff game, at least we're spoiling somebody's season. And if we have to spoil somebody's season, I hope it's Miami, and I hope it's also UVA. Before I go to UVA, one last thing, one more big bright spot was Stick It In returned. It was banned back in 2007 when I was there by Jim Weaver. I know they played it once since then, like in 2019 in that 6 overtime game against UNC. But really hope that Stick It In makes a return. That's kind of like part of the aura of Lane Stadium and of the Hokies. The students obviously love that. And it did feel like James Franklin was kind of pulling out all the stops. I don't know if that decision specifically came from Franklin or came from somebody who just wanted the primo experience for all the recruits that were going to be on the sideline for that game for the Hokies. But big shout out to the Marching Virginians and getting to play Stick It In, and hopefully that will continue, and maybe we'll hear it this weekend against UVA and hopefully into the coming seasons. Obviously this weekend we play UVA, so it is rivalry week. UVA is also fighting for a playoff spot, potential playoff spot, but even more likely is the ACC championship, and the Hokies have a chance to spoil their season and ruin their ACC championship game hopes this weekend. So UVA is, I think, 10-point favorites, 10.5 maybe, which many people would say is a surprise considering they have only won 2 out of the last 25 matchups, going back to, I think, 99, 98 maybe. It is going to be a night game on kind of primetime ESPN. It's going to be cold, about 30 degrees at kickoff. And it's going to be the last ride for the seniors wearing the maroon and orange. And I think hopefully we'll see a really big effort. I know, the guys like J.C. Price and the other staff understand the importance of that rivalry. Obviously, the guys who've been at Virginia Tech for the last couple of years understand the importance of the rivalry, and I think they'll show up and play big. A lot of noise, a lot of questions about, does Kyron get the start? Does Pop get the start at quarterback for this one? In my opinion, considering Monty has played started Kyron at quarterback all season, I doubt you see him not start Kyron for what would be his last game as a Hokie. So I expect Kyron to get the start. However, I do expect Pop to get a lot of playing time in this one, if not come in, on the second series and play thereafter, and kind of use Kyron as maybe when you need a run option from the quarterback. So we'll see what happens there. Obviously, we'll need a big effort. UVA has a better team than usual this season. They have a really good quarterback, and so that's going to be a tough ask to stop that quarterback and stop their run game. But if there's any game that I believe the Hokies will show up for, it's going to be this one. So we'll see what happens there. We'll talk about that one more. Moving into some James Franklin news. It's been just over a week, I guess 9 days, not even 9 days, since Franklin signed on the dotted line for Virginia Tech. We found out that he will be bringing his Penn State GM, Andy Frank, and his chief of staff, Kevin Threlkel. Has already brought them to Virginia Tech with him. So they are on staff. He also brought over some additional staff, including Tristan Iannone, Caleb Tyler. Iannone is the Director of External Operations. Caleb Tyler, Director of Recruiting Content. Brett Arnold, Associate Director of Player Advancement and Revenue Sharing. Rashad Elby, also Associate Director of Player Advancement and Revenue Sharing Strategy. Aeneas Hawken, Assistant Director of Player Advancement and Revenue Sharing Strategy. So all three of those, either associate or assistant directors. Chris Mahan, Recruiting Coordinator for Personnel and Recruitment. And Carson Keller, Assistant Recruiting Coordinator for Operations and Visits. So he had alluded to bringing over an additional, I think he said 8 staff members, and just didn't even have positions or salaries for them yet, but just asked them to come play and come work for him at Virginia Tech, and they'd figure all that out, and they said yes. And so he has brought his kind of core of his staff over with him, and if they can operate like they did at his last place, as he calls it, that would be a big upgrade for the Hokies. By the way, I do want to say, before I forget, Phil Montgomery has done a tremendous, excellent job as interim head coach in a really tough situation. Obviously, a really down year for the team, for the program. I don't want to say Pry left it in a bad spot, because I don't think that is true. But obviously, it's tough to take over a program that's struggling. Lost their first 3 games. Potentially could have lost tons of commits and current players in the portal. And I think at the end of the day, only lost like 3 or 4 players to the portal. So, and just you can tell the emotion from Coach Monty. You can tell that he did get the players to buy in and continue playing hard throughout the season. So, props to Coach Monty on that. I think he's kind of earned a special place in Hokie hearts, if you will, and we'll be rooting for him wherever he lands in the future. I could see him landing a head coaching spot somewhere. There will be a lot of openings for other coaches who got picked up by bigger programs. Oklahoma State just hired somebody out of North Texas, for example. So really hope to see Monty land on his feet, and I know he will. So, for anybody who listened to the Foster and Friends podcast this past week, Bud talked a little bit about the process of landing James Franklin. It was super interesting, so go listen to that if you haven't listened to it. But it's very clear from the things Bud talked about, as well as what James Franklin talked about in his introductory press conference. It's very clear that Bud and Jay Pearson and Ryan McCarthy were very instrumental in landing James Franklin, as well as A.D. Whit Babcock. Babcock obviously has been under fire, rightfully so, for a while from the fan base. But he does deserve credit for the James Franklin hire. It sounds like he really put his ego aside. He knew that he has been under fire, and still put all that aside and did whatever was needed to land James Franklin. It sounds like he actually put together the crews who would chase certain candidates, and he put Bud and Jay Pearson and Ryan McCarthy on the crew that went and visited James Franklin and really kind of embraced him and got him on board. So I do want to give credit where due. That combined with the huge increase in budget that apparently behind the scenes Babcock had been pushing for with the Board of Visitors for a while, but eventually was able to get through this year. He has come through in this instance, so maybe has saved his job, and obviously from what James Franklin said, did reference him by name a number of times and say that he was integral to the process and very truthful with him, and that meant a lot to him. So credit where due to Babcock. Bud also said on his podcast that he would love to see Brent Pry as defensive coordinator. Obviously, we don't know who Franklin's OC/DC will be at the moment. It seems unlikely that Pry would end up there, but it does seem likely that Pry will end up in some role on the staff, defensive analyst potentially, or recruiting coordinator of some sort. I also want to say, as I've taken a look at the players currently on the roster, there is a lot of young raw talent that maybe hasn't played a lot this season, probably for some good reasons as far as redshirting and stuff like that goes. But it is clear that Pry had the trajectory going back up for the Hokies as far as recruiting goes. And say what you will about the on-field product, that's one thing, and that's totally fair. But it's clear that Pry loves Virginia Tech, and that he was getting the recruiting process back on the right track, especially with regards to a lot of that in-state talent that had been leaking out to Penn State and other places over the last 10 years. So credit to Brent Pry there, as well as everybody knows the impact that he had in the landing of James Franklin and apparently his wife as well. So credit to Brent Pry, and it sounds like we will likely be seeing Brent Pry around Blacksburg for some time to come. Just a couple more things before we move on to the big thing I wanted to talk about today, which is the recruits. We did find out the contract for James Franklin is, I forget the exact number, I think it's $42 million over 5 years, but it averages out to $8.2 million a year plus performance bonuses. Penn State is on the hook for $9 million on the front end. So I think on the first 3 years it averages out to about $5 million a year. Maybe it's slightly more than 5, and then on the back end it bumps up to 12, which is where a lot of people thought it would be in the first place, was around that 11 or 12 mark, including myself. So from my perspective as a Virginia Tech fan, that's an incredible deal for the Hokies to land somebody of James Franklin's caliber for, I would say, only $8 million a year. I know that's about what he was making at Penn State, but just felt like we were going to have to pay more. So it's a good deal for us, but it also sounds like it's a really good deal for him. And he gets to continue recruiting the footprint he's familiar with in Virginia and the DMV. So credit there on the contract. Also a big increase in the staff salary pool to $15.5 million, which puts Virginia Tech in the top. It would be top 5 with, I think, last season's numbers, but should be in the top 10 or 15 at least nationally, and the top 3 in the ACC alongside Clemson and Florida State. So huge increase in football dedicated athletic money, as well as that $15 million donation from a Hokie alum, which my understanding is primarily prioritized for NIL money, which that in itself is more than some NIL collective's entire pool. So lots to be excited about there, and it's a good segue into the next thing I want to talk about, which is the recruits. I'm going to bring up something I posted yesterday. Let him cook. And the reason I posted this is 4 stars for the 4-star running back Messiah Mickens, who James Franklin has just landed and will be coming to the Burg next season. We know there were a ton of recruits in town this past weekend for the Miami game. By my count, there was, I don't remember the exact number, but there were at least 15 to 20 recruits in the 3 and 4 star caliber. a lot of those guys were 4 stars and would potentially make a big impact if we could land even half of them or most of them. So let's dig into that a little bit. I want to see if we got any comments or questions. Somebody said, found you on X. Keep up the great work. Thank you, Hoodie J. Org. The Hokies fan 05 says, whoa, that's my desktop background. Love it. Thanks for the comments, guys. And thanks for watching. So this was a list of Hokies recruits who were on confirmed visits in Blacksburg this past weekend. Like I said, a lot of these guys 4 stars and 3 stars, all really important recruits that James Franklin is hoping to land. Incredible to be able to put official visits for so many guys on such short notice. Obviously, had been working on things behind the scenes even before he signed to Virginia Tech, but that wasn't even, the first list wasn't even long enough. I had to add more here. Hudson Zell was the first PWO, preferred walk-on commit for the Hokies under James Franklin. And then Messiah Mickens, who I didn't even have on this list initially, kind of ended up coming along after the fact. And shockingly enough, ends up committing to the Hokies yesterday. So let's take a look at that one. It's been a big buzz. Not allowed to look at it for some reason. Okay, that's fine. Looks like it's having some problems on X. Anyways, I do have a bunch of some photos I wanted to show here. So this is Messiah Mickens. This is the first James Franklin recruit to commit to the Hokies. This was yesterday that he committed, and this was one of his pictures from his official visit. I want to go through. I have 11 different pictures of recruits who were either in town this past weekend, or a couple that committed previously. Messiah Mickens. This one is 3-star O-lineman Roseby Lubentis, a.k.a. Purgatory. Big-time recruit. Seems to be a leader among the group of guys who had committed to Penn State previously and then decommitted. And it seems very possible, in fact, I would say likely, that Lubentis will flip to Virginia Tech in the coming days, potentially even today. We'll see what happens with that, and we'll stay current on Roseby. Get my entire list up here. Recruits. Yeah. Okay. So the next one is Matt Sieg, 4-star safety out of Pennsylvania. One of the highest rated recruits in the country. I think he might be the highest rated recruit in the state of Pennsylvania, at least on the defensive side of the ball. This would be a huge land. Seems a bit up in the air whether the Hokies will land Matt Sieg, but it sounds like he had maybe come taking a visit in Blacksburg just out of curiosity, and then ended up really being blown away by the experience. Sounded like he loved the visit, loved Enter Sandman and the entire football experience, and this would be a big get for the Hokies if they could land Matt Sieg. This is quarterback Troy Hune, who is out of, I think, Mission Hills, California. 4-star quarterback, really good prospect. And we'll talk about some of the quarterback options. In fact, we'll talk about the entire potentially what a depth chart might look like next season after we get through these guys. This is tight end Pierce Peterson, 4-star. I believe he's out of Minnesota. Sounds like he's a very warm commit, very warm prospect. doing the VT right there. And so that would be a big get at tight end alongside Benji Gosnell and Isaiah Pina, who we'll take a look at in a minute. What else do we have here? This is Thomas Wilder. Thomas Wilder was I believe a previous commit, but I just wanted to include him in here. I want to include some of the guys who committed previously already. Another offensive lineman. This is Benny Ijuka. Believe Benny is a 4-star offensive lineman who sounds like really warm to the Hokies. A lot of these guys, James Franklin has talked about this on the podcast this week, but a lot of these guys, when they commit, they're not solely committing to a program. They're committing to a coach, and in this case, James Franklin. And so I think that shows why a lot of these guys wanted to make a visit to Virginia Tech on such short notice, and a lot of them are going to flip. So Benny Ijuka would be a big get. Offensive line is a place where the Hokies really need to kind of button up and beef up, and Ijuka would be a big get in that position. Next we have Marlon Bright. I love these pictures, by the way. I mean, these guys look awesome in the Chicago maroon. So this is Marlon Bright, another I believe 3-4-star offensive lineman who seems really warm to Virginia Tech. This guy is one of my personal favorites, Matthew Lamar. I hope I'm saying that right. Might be Lama, but I'm going to say Lamar. Matthew Lamar, 4-star linebacker who had previously committed to Penn State. He follows Progrums VT on X, which there's a bunch of these guys who have followed me over the past week, and I take that to mean they're super interested in Virginia Tech and in the program, so that's exciting. Doesn't mean they're definitely going to commit, but it certainly doesn't mean they're not. So posted a little X poll late last night. Who do you want to see, Matthew Lamar or Purgatory Lubentus, or both? And surprisingly, the winner of the poll was both. Both, please. So Lamar and Purgatory, we'd love to have both of you guys looking good in the Chicago maroon here. Who else do we have here? Got, I think, 2 more. Okay, so this is Isaiah Pina, tight end who had committed a couple months ago. Love to see, Gosnell and Peterson and Pina tight end core catching some balls over the middle. Let's go. And lastly, we got Cole Bergeron, another 4-star quarterback who had committed a number of months ago. Seems like he loves Virginia Tech and is excited to be here. One of the top quarterback prospects. I think he's the number 1 quarterback prospect out of Louisiana. So really exciting to have guys like Cole Bergeron and Troy Hoon potentially coming to Blacksburg next season. We know that Cole Bergeron will be. Not sure about Troy Hoon, but aside from that, we had. Can't believe my browser is not working here. I was going to look at some of the other guys. There we go. Some of the other guys we didn't talk about. Junior Saunders is, I think, class of 27. Amari Polidor, I believe, has a visit scheduled for this coming weekend. Javian Fat Rat. I'm sorry. Not Javian Fat Rat. Fat Rat is... Where do I have him? We'll get to that one in a minute. Javian Robinson, another 4-star. Wish my browser was loading correctly. 4-star Davian Brown, aka Fat Rat, also follows our account. Appreciate the follow and has liked a couple of posts. Fat Rat is gonna OV in Blacksburg this weekend as well. I think some of these guys are gonna come in and see the campus and I guess watch the rivalry game on Saturday night together with Coach Franklin. So super excited to have these guys in town as well. I'm not going to claim to have any super hot insider intel, but I do think Fat Rat and a couple of these other guys, Lamar, are very warm on Virginia Tech, and I would expect some commits out of a lot of these guys. Fat Rat and Lamar, and my next domino I expect to fall at the moment is Purgatory Lubentus. I think it would be interesting to hear Purgatory paving the way for Messiah in Lane Stadium soon. I think that's something we'll be hearing. Hopefully hearing it a lot. So anyways, this is the list of recruits that were mostly here last weekend. A couple more coming this weekend, and super excited for all these guys. Like I said, hopefully next commit we'll be hearing about today or in the next day or two at least, and it'll be one of these guys like Purgatory or Zuka or Lamar. So guys, come on to Blacksburg. We'd love to have you. Okay. Last thing I wanted to talk about, I put together a potential depth chart looking ahead to next season. I did not include all current players on this depth chart. Apologies to anybody I didn't include who will be on the depth chart next season. There was no intent there. Just some of these positions we had enough players that I didn't want to include the entire depth chart, or we would have had obviously 100 plus positions listed here. So and I really wanted to highlight some of the potential incoming recruits who will be freshmen next year at Virginia Tech. So starting at quarterback, we could look like Cole Bergeron, Troy Hoon will be freshmen. Then Pop Watson would be a junior next season. Potential quarterback battle for that position, but we'd be in really good hands with those three guys on the roster. What I think will be likely the best, I called it best stable in the nation next season. You could make that argument now. We just didn't have the team built around these guys, but Marcellus Hawkins will be a senior. Jeffrey Overton Jr. will be a sophomore, and Messiah Mickens incoming as a freshman. I mean, if that don't give you chills as a Hokies fan, I don't know what to tell you, man. These guys are going to be good, and I can't wait to see these guys next season. At tight end, I mean, you could make the same argument. Benji Gosnell, probably one of the best tight ends in the country. Just didn't get a chance to show it this season. Unfortunately, the tight ends weren't a big piece of the offense, and didn't seem to be a big piece after Monty took over as interim head coach. So can only imagine what we'll see next season with a new quarterback crew. And hopefully Gosnell will be right back in the mix. I'd love to see him. I mean, Gosnell's potential Heisman candidate at tight end, in my honest opinion, if we had a team around him. So with Gosnell and Pierce Peterson and Isaiah Pina already committed. Peterson very warm to Virginia Tech. It seems likely Franklin will land him as well. So that would be a really, really solid tight end core. At wide receiver, you got Aiden Green, who's, again, one of the best receivers in the country. Just the stats don't bear that out because the quarterback hasn't been dishing the ball. But You start with Aiden Green, Cameron Selden, lots of potential there. Keelan Adams, Takai Heath, Chance Wiggins, Shamarius Peterkin, Micah Matthews, all guys currently on the roster who were pretty high recruits and potentially have a lot of skill that has been kind of cooped up in the garage there. And then you've also got Davian Fat Rat Brown and Javian Robinson, who seem to be very warm to Virginia Tech. And if we could land those guys, a couple more 4-star wide receivers, we could have a really, really solid wide receiver core there. I'm going to scroll down a little bit here. Lots of offensive linemen. This is one where I don't have all of our linemen who will be here next year on the list here, but start with Brody Meadows, who will be a senior, Laith Ganem, who will be a junior, and then look at all these guys who will potentially come in and be freshmen next season. I just put them as OL, as offensive linemen. A lot of these guys currently are playing as offensive tackles at their high school positions, but some potential for some of these guys to move around into guard positions. So Roseby Lumentis, already spoke about him ad nauseum. That's purgatory. We got Thomas Wilder, Benny Azuka, Marlon Bright, Tyrell Simpson, Maddox Cochran, and then Buddy Wegdom, already a commit as well. So lots of big guys potentially coming in next season, and you have to imagine with landing Messiah Mickens, who was a really big get. I mean, he was between us and Oklahoma. Canceled his trip he was supposed to have a scheduled trip to Oklahoma this coming weekend. Sounds like he canceled that because he decided to go ahead and commit to the Hokies. So you would think as an offensive lineman, knowing that you're going to be blocking for Messiah Mickens as well as these other two guys, Hawkins and Overton next season, and Overton for the next couple seasons, you think you'd have to be excited about that. So if we can land most of these guys, or even some of them, that'd be a huge get for Franklin. Let's look on the defensive side of the ball. Down one more. Obviously already have a good core of linebackers here with Caleb Spencer and Caleb Woodson, who will be seniors next season. Noah Chambers and Gabe Williams will be sophomores next season. And then some of the potential incoming guys, Matthew Lamar and Tyser Young. Hadn't even mentioned Young yet, but the linebacking core potentially looking pretty bright there if we can land some of those guys. Personally really excited about seeing Matthew Lamar play. Heard a lot of good things about that kid. So at safety, we'd have Tyson Flowers as a senior, Quentin Reddish as a junior, Sheldon Robinson as a sophomore, Matt Sieg and Jalen Burrell as freshmen potentially, pending their commits. Already spoke about Matt Sieg, potentially one of the best players to come out of state of Pennsylvania in a while from high school, and really hoping we can land that one. I think he's rated a 95 composite right now, so would be a big land. At corner, we got Isaiah Brown Murray will be a senior, Thomas Williams a junior, Jamari Deloach will be a sophomore. I think Jamari Deloach was redshirted this season, but was a highly recruited defensive back out of high school last season, and excited to see what he can do back there. And then potentially we can add Amari Polidor, Xavier Bowman, and Xavion Cleveland for next season. If you've watched the Hokies play this season, defense has not been a strong point. A lot of the blame goes on the defensive coordinators and just the general the general defensive, I guess, position or mindset there in Blacksburg over this season. However, certainly could use some additional talent from some of these young guys coming in. I know Polydor's a 4-star. I think Xavier Bowman is a 4-star. And Xavier Cleveland, I believe, already committed and was highly recruited as well. So on the edge, Kamari Copeland will be a senior next year. Jason Abbey will be a junior. And then Cameron Johnson would be a freshman. And then at D-line, this is a position where we are really young right now. So all 4 of these guys that it says sophomore here, they are juniors this season. I think a couple of these guys redshirted, but we got El Hodge Fall, who will be a senior, and then Emmett Laws, Gerard Johnson III, Christian Evans, and Derek Dandy will be sophomores next season. And then hopefully James Franklin will be able to find some guys. Virginia Tech defense not being in the top 25, much less top 10, to me is a travesty. As someone who was there in the early to mid 2000s and witnessed those Bud Foster defenses, I mean, Bud Foster defenses were, I want to say, top 10 every year from like, at least while I was there, 03 to 08, 09, 10 maybe. And were certainly the best, some of the best in the country, even in the seasons they weren't top 10 or under Bud Foster. So that, for me, is a spot where Virginia Tech can really turn the ship around if we can bring in some talent. I would really love to see some young defensive linemen come in that can be playmakers, game changers, turn it back into Saxburg. So defense, a really big priority, obviously, considering the I think the current defensive rankings nationally are like 130 out of 136. I mean, it's about as bad as you can get. So, then lastly, on special teams, John Love would be a senior next year, and then his brother Will Love would be a freshman next season. So we're keeping it in house with the Love brothers, and that's really exciting. Obviously, John Love has been one of, if not the best kicker statistically in the nation. Just hate it for some of these guys who are really highly skilled football players across this entire list, as well as, like I mentioned, some guys that I didn't include on here. No harm intended if I didn't include some of the names. I just didn't have room for everybody here. So hate it for some of these guys that they weren't able to have a great season this season, but things obviously looking up for next season. So I'll leave it there as far as the kind of potential depth chart that I put together. Really appreciate everyone who has jumped in and taken a look at what we're talking about here today. We'll continue posting about it on X. Follow us at Progrums VT. Just going to point to it, but you can see it right there above me. There it is. Follow us at Programs VT. And this was the first format, first time I've done this format with a Virginia Tech specific episode. Hope you guys enjoyed it. It's something I'm going to continue doing. I had done it previously as just the general college football show, and then realized it wasn't something that I was super into. I really just want to talk about Virginia Tech, especially with all the exciting news after landing James Franklin. So thanks again for watching. We'll do another show next week, either Tuesday or Wednesday, and follow Programs VT on X for all the latest developments as far as the next recruits to drop. Thanks again for watching.